Four things. That's it. Four things worth putting your money into, ever. Not 15 mutual funds wearing different names. Not diversify and hope. And there's one bucket, one, that Wall Street has been pushing on you harder than any of the other three. It's not the one that makes people rich. It's just the easiest one to sell. Today I'm walking you through all four, and by the end you're going to ask yourself a question most people spend their whole life avoiding. Did you choose where your money is sitting right now, or did someone choose it for you? Stick around.
This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Welcome to the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good and bad about money. This is Robert Kiyosaki, and today is just you and me. And we're talking about what the rich are teaching their kids about money. Four things. That's it. There are only four things in this world worth putting your money into, ever. Not 15 mutual funds wearing different names, not a portfolio your advisor built and you've never read, not diversify and hope. Four things. I learned it before I was old enough to drive, not from a teacher, not from a book, from a legal pad. My rich dad picked up a pen, drew two columns, and asked me a question instead of answering one. Most people never get asked that question, not once. Not in school, not from the guy managing their 401k. And by the end of today, you will understand something most people with a financial advisor on speed dial still don't. That's not motivation. That's an unfair advantage. He didn't hand me a book. He didn't give me a lecture. He picked up a pen, drew two columns on a legal pad, then asked me a question instead of answering one. Do you know the difference between something that puts money in your pocket and something that takes it out? I didn't. Not really. My poor dad, my real father, would have answered that question with a list, the same list they hand almost everyone. Get good grades, get a good job, save your money, put it in a mutual fund, diversify. Let the professionals handle it. That list sounds responsible. It sounds safe. Most people never question it because everyone around them is doing the exact same thing. My rich dad had a different answer. He always did. Only four real asset classes exist in the entire world. Everything else falls into one of them. Every mutual fund, every advisor, every 401k statement you're afraid to open. Once you can name the bucket, you can see who's actually holding the wheel. Understand the four and you stop being confused. Stop being confused and you stop being controlled. That's the whole lesson. That conversation on that legal pad is why I have never once called a financial advisor to ask what to do with my money. And it's why most people will work 40 years, follow the list exactly as written, retire, and find out they're broke. Here's what nobody on CNBC will tell you. Wall Street has spent the better part of a century convincing smart, capable people that investing is too complicated for them to understand on their own. It's not illegal, it's just quiet. In 1974, the government passed a law called ERISA. You've never heard of it, but you've felt it. That law is the reason the 401k exists. Before it, corporations paid you a pension for life. After it, they didn't want the risk anymore. Too expensive, too permanent. So they handed you an account, called it investing for your future, and walked away. Overnight, millions of people with zero financial education were told to become investors. And just as fast, an entire industry of financial planners showed up to help them. Except most of them weren't investors either. School teachers, insurance salesmen, a few weeks earlier doing something else entirely. It was, in my rich dad's words, like throwing lambs to a pack of lions. Nobody handed those lambs a financial IQ. Nobody handed them the 4 buckets. They were just told, go be an investor now. Good luck. Here's the part that should make you angry. That industry doesn't get paid when you win. It gets paid when you show up. Whether your account goes up or down, the fees come out either way. Complexity isn't an accident. Complexity is the product. As long as you believe investing requires a professional, you will keep paying one, whether he makes you money or not. There are only 4 asset classes. I'm going to walk you through all of them. Pay close attention to which one Wall Street pushes hardest on people like you, and ask yourself why. When we come back, which bucket builds the truly wealthy, and which one Wall Street has been counting on you never questioning. This touches every dollar you have, not someday, right now. Don't go anywhere. 33.com. Okay, we're back. Let's jump right back in. We're still standing at the 4 buckets. The first one builds more wealthy people than any other bucket on the list. Business. The richest people who have ever lived didn't save their way there. They didn't clip coupons into a mutual fund. They built something. Bill Gates didn't get rich saving 15% of his paycheck. Neither did Steve Jobs. Neither did Richard Branson. Neither did I. A business is a machine. It keeps making money whether you personally show up to work that day or not. That's why Warren Buffett owns Coca-Cola. Nobody has to convince the world to drink a Coke tomorrow. The machine runs itself. But before I built anything, I had to learn to sell. In 1974, Xerox hired me and shipped me off to Leesburg, Virginia for sales training. I was terrible, dead last on the entire team. It took me 4 years to go from the bottom of that sales floor to the top. I never learned to write well. I still don't. I am not a best-writing author. I am a best-selling one. There's a difference. And it's the entire point. My rich dad said it plainly. Sales equals income. If you want to build a business, that is the one skill you cannot skip. Most people skip it anyway, then wonder why the business never grows past them. A business takes the most financial education of any of the 4 asset classes. It also builds the most wealth. That is not a coincidence. The second bucket is real estate, and this is where the money from a business goes to work a second time. In 1989, my wife Kim bought her first rental, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Portland, Oregon. Small, unimpressive. The kind of deal most people would scroll right past. Today, she owns more than 1,400 units. Here's how the math actually works, and it's the opposite of what you were taught. If my company generates $1 million in cash flow, I don't sit on it. I go to a bank, I borrow $4 million against it, I acquire more property. Most people hear that and think I'm insane. I love debt. I hate taxes. Real estate is one of the only places on earth where you can use both of those feelings to get richer at the exact same time. Leverage, cash flow, depreciation. All 3 working together all at once. Nobody in a classroom ever taught you that debt could be a tool instead of a trap. That wasn't an accident either. Real estate takes the second highest level of financial education, right behind business. That's exactly why most people never touch real estate directly. They buy a REIT instead and call it real estate investing. It isn't. It's a paper asset wearing a real estate costume. Which brings us to the bucket Wall Street actually wants you in. When we come back, the bucket almost nobody chose on purpose. the one that requires zero sales skill, zero management skill, and zero financial education to buy. The one that's probably sitting in your account right now. Stay with step. We're back. Let's get right back to it. 2 buckets down, business and real estate, where wealth gets built. Now the one almost everyone is actually standing in. Paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, your 401k. Here's a secret I told you I'd come back to. Paper assets are the only bucket that requires zero sales skill, zero management skill, and zero financial education to buy. All you have to do is call a broker or go online and say, I want 100 shares of that. You could train a monkey to do it. That's not a compliment. That's the entire business model. Think about who's selling you the mutual fund. Most financial planners didn't spend a decade mastering markets. Many of them changed careers a few weeks before they got their license. They were teachers, nurses, checkout clerks, good people, handed a title and a quota. They were taught to sell in the S quadrant, not to invest in the I quadrant. There's a difference, and it's the one they hope you never notice. And here's a part that should really bother you. When you buy a stock, you own a tiny sliver of a company you cannot control. If Microsoft's expenses are too high, Bill Gates is not taking your call. You have no say in the debt, the leadership, the decisions, none. You are a passenger, hoping the driver knows what he's doing. That's not investing. That's gambling with a nicer name. Paper assets aren't evil. They've made a few people very rich. But they've also lost trillions for regular people who never asked to be investors. People simply handed a 401k after the pension disappeared and told, figure it out. They didn't fail. They were never taught. There's a difference, and Wall Street is counting on you never learning it. This is the bucket Wall Street pushes hardest, not because it's the best one, because it's the easiest one to sell to the most people with the least amount of explaining. The 4th bucket is commodities, gold, silver, and yes, today, Bitcoin. This one is different from the first 3. Business and real estate are how you get rich. Commodities were never meant to make you rich. They exist to keep you from getting poor. Every dollar the Federal Reserve prints makes the dollars already in your bank account worth a little less, quietly, while you sleep. Currency is not the same thing as money. Commodities are a hedge against the difference between the two. When the money supply grows, tangible things priced in that money tend to rise right along with it. Gold does not care what the Fed announces at its next meeting. That's exactly why I own it. Commodities require the least financial education of the 4 buckets. That's the good news. The bad news? The least is not none. There are just as many con artists in the gold and silver business as anywhere else, especially when prices are climbing and everyone suddenly wants in. I started studying oil as a young man sailing for Standard Oil. I started studying gold years later as a pilot in Vietnam. Neither one made me rich overnight. That was never the point. You don't buy an oil well or a gold coin for the story. You buy it because paper money has a printing press behind it, and metal in the ground does not. Commodities are insurance. You don't buy insurance hoping to use it. You buy it so that when everything else gets shaky, you're still standing. Now put all 4 next to each other. Look at what you're actually looking at. Business and real estate, where wealth gets built. Paper assets and commodities, where it gets managed, protected, if you know what you're doing. Most people never touch the first 2, not because they chose not to, because nobody ever showed them. They go straight to paper assets because it was the only bucket anyone ever handed them. Warren Buffett said something once that most financial advisors hope you forget. Spreading your money across a pile of things you don't understand isn't a strategy. It's a hiding place for people who never learn to properly evaluate a single one of them. True diversification isn't 12 different mutual funds. That's one asset class wearing 12 different masks. Real diversification means understanding all 4 buckets well enough to choose, on purpose, where your money goes and why. I set my asset goals every year around New Year's Day, not resolutions, goals. Which bucket am I adding to? How much? Why? That's the difference between hoping your portfolio grows and building it on purpose. You don't need to master all 4. Rich Dad didn't ask that of me. He asked me to pick one, follow it until I understood it cold, then add the next. What you cannot afford to do is what most people do. Hand your money to a stranger in a bucket you didn't choose and hope. The gap between the wealthy and everyone else was never about luck. It was never even really about money. It was about who understood these 4 buckets and who was simply told which one to stand in. So here's a question worth sitting with. Right now, today, your money is sitting in one of these 4 buckets, maybe more than one. Did you choose it, or did someone choose it for you? If you're honest, for most people, it's the second one. A 401k that showed up with the job, an advisor a relative recommended, a mutual fund picked because it had a nice name and a green arrow next to it last quarter. That's not a financial failure. That's an education gap. And it closes the same way every gap closes, not with more saving, with more understanding. Go back to that legal pad for a second. Rich Dad's question was never, what should I invest in? That's the question Poor Dad would have asked. It's the question that keeps people waiting on someone else's advice for 40 years. The real question was simpler. What do I need to learn? Learn business and you build a machine that pays you whether you show up or not. Learn real estate and you turn debt into a weapon instead of a trap. Learn paper assets and you stop being the last one to find out the truth about a company you never controlled. Learn commodities and you stop pretending your savings account is safe from a printing press. None of that happens in a single episode. It happens one bucket at a time, one decision at a time, starting with the one you're standing in right now, whether you meant to or not. Nobody is coming to teach you this in school. Nobody taught it to your parents either. That's not an excuse. That's just where the education starts. 4 buckets, one decision in front of you. Keep handing your future to someone else and hoping, or start learning which bucket is yours and why. That's the difference. Thank you for your time. Thank you for caring about your future. Thank you for understanding that you are the only one who cares about taking care of you.